Nikki woke up in an unfamiliar, strange room. From somewhere, a strange humming sound filled the red-walled room, not really helping Nikki dealing with her headache. She had a stain from the fall. Behind her, the weird block thing was still floating around, live and emotionless as before. She tried to say something to it again, but it didn't respond and she wasn't sent back to where she had been before. So Nikki decided to make the best out of this and continue her exploration, even if she was now trapped in a bright red room, or rather, a maze. After she had walked for a while, Nikki noticed that she had lost her neon colors during her knockout. She began to doubt that she was still asleep. After all, she had been unconscious, so maybe she had awakened again. Was this the real world? But no, that couldn't be. The block creature from before surely couldn't be real. Now, could it? Nikki just decided that she still was dreaming and let out a slight, relieved sigh. Corridor after corridor, Nikki stumbled through the maze. Her curiosity and energy from before were starting to vanish, and with every step she took, she felt more and more tired. After walking through an extremely long corridor, Nikki finally found another one of these floating blocks, and without thinking about it, she touched it. Footprints. Everywhere on the ground, footprints. But no, they were not everywhere. Even those footprints seemed to create a path of some kind. Nikki knew what she had to do. Follow them, she told herself. They might lead you away from here. But by now, after walking through this maze for how long? 20, 30 minutes. Nikki had stopped counting the time. The only thing that kept her going now was her desire to end all of this, to finally wake up. As she turned around to follow the footsteps, Nikki saw a horrific creature. Not far away from where the footsteps stopped, it seemed to grow out of the ground. The look in its eyes was painful to watch. It was a mixture of insanity and fear. Nikki stepped closer to examine the round ball with eyes and a mouth, but as she came closer, the creature suddenly let out a loud, painful cough, so loud Nikki could almost feel her eardrums bursting. A few sprinkles of blood landed on the ground. They had come out of the great creature's mouth or nose. Terrified, Nikki hurried on, and although she felt sorry for this abomination, she knew that she couldn't help him. More of them appeared, on her left, on her right side. Why were these creatures here? Had they been brought here, or had they been born this way? To be permanently stuck in the ground for all eternity. Nikki couldn't imagine the fate of these poor souls. After passing by another creature, Nikki felt the air suddenly becoming much colder, and a shiver went down her spine. In front of her, two big, ape-like creatures had appeared. She had seen creatures similar to those in some old history books. Back when she had gone to school, she remembered that the Maya or the Aztecs used to cut such creatures out of wood, since they believed them to be gods or something like that. The weird, silent, motionless creatures, which had long arms reaching from the top of their heads to their legs and giant mouths with big white teeth, appeared on both sides of the road, and Nikki didn't dare to look directly at them, for she feared that they would attack her if she did. The further she came, the more horrified she became by the looks of the creatures. They started bleeding, and the mouths were formed in a way that suggested that they were feeling enormous pain. Suddenly, without any sign of warning, Nikki found herself in another room, one without footsteps. As she turned around, she saw a giant head and a mouth, and behind it, the path she had just gone through with the weird Maya creatures on its side. An arm grabbed her from the side, and the last thing Nikki saw was that it belonged to the head she had just came out of. Its face was disoriented in extreme pain, and a voice filled with despair, fear, and anger in Nikki's mind started to constantly repeat the words, "Not my child. Don't take my child, please." The hand which had grabbed Nikki lifted her off the ground and then threw her away into the darkness. More. They were everywhere, tearing her apart, grabbing for every one of her limbs. They wouldn't let her go before they would have torn out every one of them. And the voice. This voice. The voice of a mother, a lost voice, repeating itself over and over again. So much despair, so much darkness. As she felt her arm, her left arm, loosening from her body, Nikki started to scream along with the voice in her head, knowing that there was nothing that could save her anymore. "Not my child! Don't take my child, please!" She would be here for all eternity, bleeding, dying. Why hadn't she protected poor Jimmy better? She was a terrible mother. They had come to take her, and she hadn't stopped them. "Jimmy," Nikki whispered, her vision blurring, not knowing where she was anymore. "I'm sorry." Darkness. Nothingness. She was finally gone. Maybe she would meet Jimmy again. A last sigh, and Nikki disappeared into the darkness, the hands still ripping her apart. Gone. She woke up. Nikki woke up. It was a bad dream. Only a bad dream, she reminded herself, sighing in relief. Still heavily breathing, she looked around, glad to see that she was still in her old apartment. Nothing had changed. Nikki stood up and suddenly saw something lying on the ground in front of her desk. It was a picture. The frame had broken when it had fallen down, as well as the glass. But the picture was still intact. Nikki smiled as she saw her Jimmy once again. It was a photo of her boy together with his mother in the park. He had been 2 years old when she had lost him. Something in Nikki's mind snapped. Lies. Lies. That was not true. She had never had any children. She was 21, jobless, and had never had children. But the photo in her hand, that was her. She turned it around, afraid of what she would find on the other side. The date. It was impossible. The 3rd of August, 1991. Her 2nd birthday. Nikki fell to her knees, crying for herself, for the poor creatures stuck in the black soil of the underground, who would never see the light of the day, for the woman who had lost her child to the darkness, for Jimmy. End of part 2.